The Act 1 of Hamlet comprises of 5 scenes, and let's see what happens in Act 1 of Hamlet. See, most of the action in the play occurs in and around the castle, which is situated at Elsinore in Denmark. And as the play begins, from the military officers who are at guard, we come to know that King Hamlet is dead. And Prince Hamlet has returned to Denmark from Germany. He was studying at Wittenberg in Germany, so he has returned from Denmark to attend the funeral of his father. Now, as he has came to Denmark, he sees that his mother, Queen Gertrude, hastily marries his uncle Claudius. And Claudius, after the marriage, he has himself crowned as the King of Denmark. So many events happen as a chain. The first is the death of King Hamlet. Second is the marriage of Queen Gertrude to his uncle. And third is the succession to throne of King Claudius. So all these things are directly affecting Hamlet. The death of his father, the marriage of his mother, the crowning of King Claudius, all these are having so much of repercussions, so much of effect, so much of impact on Hamlet. And of course, the impact is not positive, it is a negative sort of impact. Okay, so this is the conflict that is introduced as or in the very opening of the play itself. And after that, we see that Hamlet is informed by the sentinels, by the guards, that a ghost has appeared. And this ghost resembles the shape and form of his dead father, King Hamlet. So Hamlet is astounded. Hamlet is shocked. Hamlet is excited. So he decides to go and meet the ghost. Okay? And Hamlet confronts the ghost, and the ghost reveals $1 million truth to Hamlet. The ghost tells Hamlet that I am the ghost of your father, King Hamlet. That is one revelation. Second revelation is that I did not die a natural death. The whole world, including you, is made to believe that I died because of a snake bite while I was relaxing in my garden. But that is not the truth. I was murdered. And the murderer is your uncle, King Claudius. Okay, so that is the second and the third revelation. The first revelation is, I am the ghost of your father, King Hamlet. Second revelation is, I did not die by an accident, I was murdered. Third revelation is, the murderer who murdered me now wears the crown. He is the crowned king, that is King Claudius. And fourth, the ghost asks Hamlet, as a dutiful son, take revenge. Take revenge on my murderer. So this is what the ghost reveals to Hamlet. So, this is the most important conflict that is introduced at the very first act. And as a subplot, we also see Fortinbras. Fortinbras belongs to Norway. He is the prince of Norway, and he is planning to attack Denmark because his father, King Fortinbras, was once upon a time killed by King Hamlet. So he wants to take revenge. He wants to claim back all those lost lands that the King of Norway had surrendered to Denmark. So some political disputes are going on between Denmark, Norway, and Poland. So this is also a backdrop that we see in the play. Altogether, you find that at every stance there is some point of conflict, some point of that a rottenness is going on in every part, be it the court, be it the mind of people, be it the political scenario, be it the social ambience. Everywhere you find some sort of conflict being going on. So all this adds to the background of the play, that conflicting nature that Shakespeare introduces at the very first act itself. And yet another subplot is the family, the household of Polonius. Polonius has a son and a daughter. His son is Leatrice and his daughter is Ophelia. And Leatrice has come back to Denmark to attend the funeral of King Hamlet and the crowning of Claudius. And Polonius and Leatrice, we see that both of them are advising Ophelia because they have come to know about a secret love affair that was going on between Hamlet and Ophelia. So we find the brother and the father advising Ophelia to abstain from Hamlet. So this is what you find in the first act of Hamlet. Moving on to Act 2 of Hamlet. Here we see a Hamlet who is in an emotional turmoil. He's completely depressed after knowing the cause of his father's death. He's visibly agitated. Okay? And he tells his friends, especially Horatio, that from now on I am going to pretend madness. I am going to put on an antique disposition because Hamlet has his own intentions to do that. He wants to prove whether Claudius is guilty or not. He wants to confuse them. He wants to play with their emotions. So he tells them that I am going to pretend that I am mad. Claudius and his mother Gertrude are concerned for his welfare. So, in order to understand the reason for Hamlet's disturbed behavior, they summon two of Hamlet's childhood friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They hope that through their interaction with Hamlet, they will be able to understand what is troubling him. But Hamlet is immediately skeptical about their surprise visit. Okay? At another end, we see that Polonius, the courtier, he is also doing his own way of investigation regarding the changed behavior of Hamlet. Everybody is confused, not only Claudius and Gertrude, but everybody inside the court is confused about the very changed behavior of Hamlet. So Polonius, he comes to a conclusion that it is the rejected love of Ophelia that is troubling Hamlet. So, in order to confirm his own suspicions, he arranges a meeting between Ophelia and Hamlet. Anyway, Polonius seems to be convinced that Hamlet's love for Ophelia and Ophelia's rejection of that love is the cause of Hamlet's madness. And then we see that a group of players arrive at the Danish court to entertain. So Hamlet arranges a meeting with them and he asks them to perform the play The Murder of Gonzago. But he puts in some additions into the play. He adds on a few lines into that play. And he tells the actors that you should perform accordingly. And what Hamlet hopes is to prove that Claudius is guilty of the murder of his father. He believes that if whatever happened in reality or whatever the ghost has told, that is represented on stage before Claudius, and when Claudius happens to see that in front of his eyes, at least there will be some gesture of guilt that will be visible on the face of Claudius. And that reaction, through that reaction, Hamlet believes that he will be able to confirm that Claudius is guilty. So this is the summary of the second act. The second act comprises of only 2 scenes. Okay. Next we move on to Act 3 of the tragedy Hamlet, and here Rosencrantz and Guildenstern report back to Claudius that they have no explanation for the strange behavior of Hamlet. So, upon the plan of Polonius, both Claudius and Polonius eavesdrop during the meeting between Hamlet and Ophelia. And Hamlet, during that meeting, treats Ophelia very irrationally. And this creates a sort of suspicion in the mind of Claudius regarding the behavior of Hamlet. He feels that there is something threatening, or there is something that is so strange about the behavior of Hamlet. So he decides to keep Hamlet away from Denmark. So with this intention, Claudius plans to send Hamlet to England. And another important event that happens in the play is called the play within the play. That is, the troupe of players, they perform their drama, and in that drama they almost duplicate the circumstances surrounding King Hamlet's death. And Hamlet and Horatio very closely observes Claudius during the play, and Hamlet sees that Claudius is visibly upset at seeing some part of the play. And in another scene, we see that Claudius is left alone in his chamber and he confesses his crimes in a soliloquy. And the queen also is upset at seeing that the king was disturbed by the play. So she asks Hamlet to meet her privately in her chamber. And Polonius happens to hear that the queen is summoning her son to her chamber. So what he does is he decides to eavesdrop the meeting between the mother and son. And so he gets into the chamber of Gertrude and he hides himself behind the curtain. And during the meeting between Hamlet and Gertrude, Hamlet rebukes Gertrude, and Gertrude is shocked to see the strange behavior of Hamlet, and so she cries out. And hearing her cry out, Polonius also cries out from behind the curtains. Okay, and Hamlet thinks that it is Claudius who is behind the curtain. He stabs through the tapestry and thereby killing Polonius. So this act is an eventful act because so many things happen during this Act 3. We get to know that the words of the ghost is really true. That the ghost which revealed that it was murdered, and it was murdered by his own brother. All this is proved true during this act. So altogether we have 4 scenes in the third act, and it is a very important act because you see that the conflict is rising and it has reached its peak point in Act 3. Act 4, which is pretty lengthy because it consists of 7 scenes, but again most of the scenes are pretty short. So in Act 4, at the beginning itself, you see that there is a lot of commotion due to the unexpected death of Polonius. Polonius is an important courtier, and so he is dead, and it is not a natural death. He was killed by the Prince of Denmark, Hamlet. So there is a lot of confusion, a lot of argument going on inside the court itself. So Claudius takes this as an opportunity to send Hamlet to England. So he makes a false pretense of protecting Hamlet's life. And you also see that Claudius is planning to send Hamlet to England, and he has also asked the King of England to kill Prince Hamlet as soon as he reaches the shores of England. So again, in another instance, you see Leatrice comes back from France. He's so grief-stricken by their father's death, and Leatrice is so full of spirit and revenge to avenge the death of his father, and he solicits Claudius' assistance in finding his murderer. And then you see that Hamlet, along with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, are sent to England, but midway their ship gets attacked by pirates, and Hamlet is taken as prisoner by the pirates. And we get to know about all this through a letter Hamlet sends to Horatio. Okay, and Hamlet sends 2 letters, one to Horatio and one to Claudius. And in the letter to Claudius, he informs him that he is coming back to Denmark. So Claudius understands that his plan A has failed. So he next needs to cook up a plan B. So in order to remove Hamlet as a threat, he instills revenge in the mind of Leatrice. He tells Leatrice that it is Hamlet who killed your father, and you, as a dutiful son, you have to take revenge for your father's death. And so Claudius plans for a duel match or a fencing match, a sword fight between Hamlet and Leatrice. And he has plans to kill Hamlet during that sword fight, because he will anoint the sword with poison, and he will give the poisoned sword to Leatrice, and with that sword, if Leatrice happens to strike Hamlet, he will be poisoned and he will be killed. So this is that $1 million plan that Claudius cooks up. And again, this act is very important because we come to know about, or we get a very thorough exposure of both the characters. I mean, both Hamlet as well as the villain Claudius. The villainy of Claudius especially gets exposed to its maximum during this act, because right from the first acts we have been introduced to both these characters, but Claudius is like the real Claudius seems to be masked. He pretends to be a very considerate person, a very understandable husband, a very capable king, a very concerned stepfather. So he seems to pretend all these roles perfectly well in the first acts. It is only during Act 3 onwards we come to know that Claudius is not as what you see. Okay, he is like a serpent under the flower. Okay, and slowly but very very clearly, very visibly, Shakespeare exposes the villainy of Claudius as well as the fault or the procrastinating spirit of Hamlet. So both these characters get exposed to their best during this act. And next we move on to Act 5, which is the climax, the final tragedy, the final destination. Okay. On to the final act of Hamlet, Act 5. Again, comprises just of 2 scenes, but very lengthy scenes. And again here we come across another tragic event, that Ophelia has gone mad because of the unexpected death of her father. Not only that, her father was killed by her lover, Hamlet. So this has completely disoriented her mind, and she goes mad. And then we also see that Ophelia subsequently gets drowned. And this results in a confrontation between Leatrice and Hamlet during her funeral ceremony. And Claudius intervenes and he assures Leatrice that he can take revenge during the duel match. And again in this scene we come across the villainy of Claudius, because Hamlet tells Horatio regarding what happened during his voyage to England. So he says that the pirate ship attack and all those events that happened on board, and then he tells that he came across a letter that was entrusted with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and while they were asleep, Hamlet happened to open that letter and read the contents, and he was shocked to see that that was a letter by Claudius to the King of England. And in that letter it was written, as soon as the ship reaches the shore of England, kill Hamlet. So Hamlet just he replaces that letter with another message in which he says that as soon as the ship reaches the shore, kill Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Okay, and that's how he seals the fate of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, by substituting another letter in the envelope. And then at another point, we see that in this act, Hamlet agrees to the duel with Leatrice, and it appears before the court, before everyone. And Claudius, as already mentioned, he has brought the sword which is anointed with poison, and he also has another plan. If that fails, he has also brought a cup of wine which is also poisoned, a poisoned cup of wine. So if Leatrice fails to strike Hamlet, when they call for an interval, this poisoned cup of wine will be served to Hamlet. So at any cost, Hamlet's death should be assured. So that is the plan of Claudius. So the duel progresses, and during the fight, Hamlet and Leatrice accidentally exchange their swords, and Hamlet strikes Leatrice with that poisoned sword, and at another point Hamlet also is stricken by that poisoned sword. So in effect, both of them get poisoned, and that cup of wine which was meant for Hamlet by Claudius, that is accidentally being sipped by Queen Gertrude, who was watching that match. So she falls down dead, and seeing that his mother falls dead, and before dying she calls out that she is poisoned. And Hamlet, seeing that his mother is dead, he rushes to Claudius and he stabs him with that sword. So in effect, as the play closes, everybody in that play, almost all the major characters, the king, queen, Leatrice, Hamlet, all of them are dead. Now just before dying, we see Fortinbras arrives, and he has attained victory over Poland, and just before dying, Hamlet entrusts the kingship of Denmark to Fortinbras. Fortinbras pays tribute to Hamlet, and he arranges for the proper burial of all these stalwarts. So this ends the play, the tragedy of Prince Hamlet, that Shakespeare. Now this is just an outline story, or the act-wise summary of what exactly is the plot of the story, the drama. But in order to appreciate the play well, we have to look into detail regarding all the beautiful lines, all the beautiful images, all that beautiful characterization, all that plot setting and everything that Shakespeare has so wonderfully weaved into the fabric of that play. So we'll be discussing the play in detail, but before that, I want you all to listen to these audios and be thorough about what exactly is the plot of Hamlet. Okay, so thank you.